viewers joining us on Zoom. So come on in, everybody. I don't know who that strange man is I have with me tonight. Does anyone recognize him with the mask? So that's the Simpsons, Ray, right?
No,
No,
it's
it's not. It's
minnows.
who is it?
The minnows.
The Minions. Yes, yes, yes,
Minions,
yes,
that's
yes,
it.
yes.
Sorry, yeah. No, minnows are the little darlings at school, aren't they? Yeah, these are
So
minions, and I used to put a minions joke on the bottom of my uh, FBA newsletters until a couple of people objected.
what's wrong with the
So I won't.
Minions?
Well, some people haven't got a sense of humour. That's the problem.
You have a sense of humor, though, Ray.
I do, but not everybody has the same one as me. That's the problem.
Yeah, but sure. People need to get a life sometimes, right?
Well, that is what I've said to the board enough times, but they don't listen.
Well, we're deeply honoured to have you on the Think Tank. I know most of you will know Ray. He's famous throughout the world. But for those who don't, Ray has run his studio for over 40 years. His daughter now runs it on a day-to-day basis. And of course, he's the esteemed chairman of the Master Photographers Association. So Ray, we're deeply honoured to have you here. So
It's my pleasure.
So tell us, we can cover a whole lot of things. I know we're going to get into how to make more money using generational portraiture. But before we go there, just to see, what's happening in your business right now with COVID, and what are you seeing? What are the clients saying? And are they spending more? Or tell us your general feeling for what you're seeing.
Yeah, it's a weird feeling because there is no one answer to anything. And if anybody says, oh, I know exactly what to do or how to handle it or whatever, they're lying, because nobody's been through this. Therefore, nobody has a clue what to do. Now, I've now been in business 45 years. And in fact, the day that we went into lockdown, we had a big party organised, and we had everything organised and paid for because we were celebrating 45 years in business. And all of a sudden, everything shut down and we couldn't do it. And therefore, we went through the lockdown with everybody else. And as MPA chairman, we were creating an MPA community to help people so they didn't feel left alone. Because I think the problem with photography, it's very lonely, and you sit out there in your own little world thinking you're the only person with a problem, you're the only person that's in this situation. And I think we were there were three of us that were just working so hard to generate a community with the MPA to make everybody feel that they were part and parcel of everything. And everything we were doing, in a way, has continued, and the photographers absolutely love that. So the membership is growing. But in my own business, we came back, I think the 15th of July, and the first thing we did for a week was just clean the place. I'm staggered by how dirty a place gets when it's not used. Where does all this dust come from? You know?
I know.
But it was also a thing of, I made the photographers go in the studio for a couple of days and photograph themselves, each other, all of us. We were just making sure everybody knew how to get back and use the camera. And I know that sounds stupid, but if you haven't driven for 3 months and you get in the car, you sit there and go, what do I do next? And in a way, being a photographer was the same. Now, we've steadily got busier and busier. We opened, first of all, for a 4-day week. Then we opened for a 5-day week. Now we're back to this month opening a 6-day week. So we're back working Saturdays and Sundays. And it's really funny because we put out a post last week that says we are now open Sundays again. And we had 4 people phone up on Sunday and say, can I book a sitting? Well, obviously, we were telling them we're open Sundays to try and get them to book in for Sunday sittings. And they were phoning up on Sunday wanting to book in for just normal sessions because they were going, oh, good, they're open on Sunday. We've got something to do. So it proves people read and people look and people know, what we're doing. But I think the whole thing has been a very, very steady, gradual improvement, a very slow, much slower than I expected. At the beginning, I was expecting perhaps a little bit more than we got. And that wasn't me necessarily being sort of over expectations, but I just expected people to go, at last we can do something. But what was interesting is we were getting newborns coming in, but instead of being 2 weeks old, they were 3 and 4 months old. And yet they were saying, look, I've bought this newborn voucher, can I still do a newborn? And it was the same with the cake smashes. The kids were coming in at 14, 15, 16 months old for the year cake smash and things like that. So in a way, it's as if the world stopped for 3 months and then all of a sudden it started up again. But we're now back to not quite the levels we were at because we were very busy before lockdown. But we're just beginning to get there. And I think this month will slowly improve. October will improve even more if the government stop doing stupid things to restrict people. And I think it will just work its way through Christmas. We're now actually mentioning that big word of Christmas because one woman said to me, we want something to look forward to. We want to be able to say to the kids, we're going to take you to see Father Christmas. And, you know, in fact, I bought a Father Christmas sleigh on Monday. And the only thing it's missing is Rudolph at the front of it. And then somebody said, oh, you know, you can hire reindeer, don't you? And I thought, oh, God, the last thing I want is a reindeer in the studio. But we've actually bought this sleigh, which is quite large, so that I, as Santa, can sit behind it and the kids can sit in it, and therefore social distancing will work. So we're thinking that far down the line because we want our customers to know we're doing it because we do it for charity. We want the customers to realise that we're talking about safe distancing and being careful and everything else. And again, if we could raise a couple of £1,000 for our charity this year, then I'll be delighted. And I think what will happen is that will slowly filter through the business. And we can but keep hoping, we can keep plugging away.
So, Ray, are you seeing a difference in attitude post-COVID from the clients? You know, we talked a lot on the think tank and various people were suggesting that, you know, because we were in lockdown and we were with those that we love and relationships should be stronger and we're reevaluating what's important and the rat race is not what it's about and it's about our relationships, whether that be with our family or our siblings or our pets. Have you noticed any of that coming true?
Yeah, distinctly. I mean, before lockdown, with the MPA, I was doing a lot of promoting in terms of this generational portraiture thing. It was something I got asked to do at the end of last year. We created a video, we made a video, and we started putting that out and we started pushing the generational portraits more and more. And then lockdown came and everything, as you know, as we say, just came to a grinding halt. Now, I expected when we came back to work, I expected families to come in more than they did. And we had quite a few people saying, oh no, July's a bit early. Oh no, we've only just got back in August with our grandparents. You know, we don't want to sort of do it too quickly. So funny enough, I looked at the diary this morning when I was in work and we've actually got quite a busy October. And it's as if there's this sort of mental shifting where people, although they were able to come back in July, they seem to have given themselves a couple of months. Now, last week we had a family of 12 in, we had a family of 10 and a family of 17. Now, we were quite surprised, but we looked at all of the makeups and it was Granny and Grandad plus their children plus their grandchildren. And they were all in a bubble where for most of August, they had all been mixing each other's houses and that sort of thing. So it wasn't as if we were going outside of their bubbles and just bringing in friends. The people that are coming in are all close family. But we are now getting the slightly bigger families, the sort of the 6, the 8, the 10s. In July, early August, we were getting quite a few sort of mum, dad, kid, mum, dad, 2 kids, that sort of thing. There's been an attitude change because we've been driving that, because we've been saying things like, have you had a portrait taken with your parents? I mean, if we did a show of hands, which we can't, on everybody listening to this webinar, how many people listening to it have got a professional portrait of their own parents? That's the first question. The second question is, how many of those listening to this have had their pictures taken with their parents and had their children and them photographed with their parents? Now, that's what generational portraiture is. And of course, COVID has been unkind. I think I read last night that 900,000 people have now passed away, which is very sad, very unfortunate. And mentally, that has made people more aware of what's important. There was a survey I saw last week. What's more important that the government should concentrate on, money or health? Well, it doesn't matter how bloody rich you are, your health is more important, because if they can't bury you with traveller's checks. So it's important that we push the health element. We're secure, we're conscious, we're very much a case of letting people know we understand. But they themselves, if they're in a bubble, they're beginning to understand more and more that their families are very, very important to us. And we're getting some lovely imagery of grandparents with the grandkids. And again, you ask yourself about rarity. The rarest, obviously, is 5 generations. I mean, to get 5 generations is not easy. To get 4 in this day and age is a fraction more easy. A lot of families have got 3. Well, we had a 4 generation last week, and it was fabulous. Yeah, okay, it was fabulous because they spent a lot of money, which was good. But we were able to do a lot of combinations. But the picture they loved the most was what I call super gran, the oldest gran, with the grandchild. And the picture of those two together, they were just over the moon with, because they realised how important it was, and they realised how lucky they were to have 4 generations. And I think so many people have sort of sat down and looked and thought, you know what, we are lucky because we've got our grandparents are safe, they're not in care homes, which has been risky, and all this sort of thing. So it has made a huge difference mentally to people. People have realised that they've sort of turned around, looked at their own parents and gone, we want a picture with that. And you and I were talking earlier about graduations. I mean, this year over here, graduations haven't happened. We had a graduation in last week, and it was a wonderful family, and he was really decked out beautifully. It was a lovely blue graduation gown and cap. And he had his parents and his grandparents, and his grandparents were so proud of him. They hugged him so tightly, I thought they were going to strangle him at one point. But that's, those people might never have gone to the actual graduation itself. So by coming in the studio for the graduation, they really got into it. And they absolutely adored it. So there are things like that happening which are slightly off the norm. And I think it is because more and more and more people are just thinking about their families and what their families consist of and how lucky they are.
So I want to deep dive into the operational piece and how that links into the sales piece of this multi-generational portraiture. But before we go there, you know the way I'm a marketing nerd, right? So I'm curious, when you're marketing this, who's making the booking? Who within the family of 3 generations is going, we need to do this?
Parents, not the grandparents, but the parents.
Okay.
Because the parents, in a way, the parents have sort of said to themselves, right, we're lucky mum and dad are still alive. We're lucky because we've got a family. So let's have a family portrait. And then they'll say, oh, let's invite mum and dad to come with us. Now, I heard the girls a few days ago on the phone saying to somebody, all right, you want to book a family portrait? Are you bringing your parents with you? And there was a silence. And then this girl said, oh, we hadn't thought of bringing mum and dad. And we said, well, you must, in fact, have 2 mum and dads because of the age of the child, which was about 3. You sort of add the figures up and you think, yeah, they should have both sets of grandparents, hopefully. And they went, oh, what a bloody good idea. I hadn't thought of that. So all of a sudden you turn a family of 3 into a family of 5 or 7. And as long as you can still keep safe, and as long as you can say to them, look, we're safe about it, we've got so many hand sanitizers around the place. And I think that will go on forever now. I think people washing their hands and using sanitizer will go on all the time. But we are putting the seed by using advertising on Facebook and things like that. So we're putting the seed out there by putting out generational portraiture. Now we've just put a photograph out of these 4 generations, these 3 wonderful women and the sort of baby boy that was 2 years old in the middle. And it's such a lovely, cozy picture. And they're all blondes. And it's such a lovely, lovely picture. And we've had at least half a dozen bookings because of that going in Facebook, because people have looked at it and gone, oh, we haven't got 4 generations, but we've got 3. It's the same way that we get people to bring their dogs into a session by literally on the phone saying to them, oh, do you want to, have you got any pets? Do you want to bring your dogs to the session? And you often hear people going, really? Oh, we can bring the dog with us. And we go, well, you probably prefer the dog to your kids some of the time. And they laugh and go, oh, yeah, okay, we'll bring the dog. So it's a way of increasing sales, which is what it's all about, by increasing the marketing. But if you don't suggest it to the customers are not savvy enough to be able to suggest it. Now, in my MPA chairman's newsletter this week, I put out a bit saying, do you realise that Christmas is 15 weeks away? And do you realise that this Sunday it's Grandparents' Day? And one person sent me an email from Scotland and he said, no, Grandparents' Day is in October. And I said, it doesn't matter when it is, I've made you think about Grandparents' Day. So if you put a Facebook post out saying, think about Grandparents' Day, whether you get the date right or wrong doesn't really make a lot of difference. It makes people think about it. And our job as marketeers is to make people think about it, because they're not going to think about it themselves because they're living their lives.
And I love that, Ray, because you know, Steve Jobs is one of my heroes, God rest him. But you know, he used to say, when your clients tell you what they want, you're too late. And the same way here, you know, your plan, if they ring up and say, you know, can I bring my grandparents? But you've got to suggest that in your marketing and in your sales and on the phone, you know, to make that happen.
You have to, you know, it's this thing about, we must not assume the customers are savvy. The customers, when they come into the sales room, we give them a product guide. We give them a comprehensive product guide. You can spend this much, this much, this much. You can have wall portraits, prints, whatever. But customers are not savvy. They come in the room and they're not sure what they're going to have or what they want. You get some people that distinctly want an acrylic on the wall or something, but not everybody's like that. Therefore, unless you make the suggestion, unless you put seeds in their minds, unless you actually give them ideas of what they should do. It was really funny. Last week I was selling a wall portrait and they wanted it in a frame. And we've got about 30 different frame mouldings. And I sometimes think we should have 2 frames, you know, black or white sort of thing. But we've got 30 different frame mouldings. And it was so funny because I sort of put them out and the woman sort of kept looking at them and she went, oh, I don't know what to have. And she said, do you think black's a bit morbid to have in our living room? And I said to them, what colour's your TV? And they looked at each other and went, black. And I said, well, there's your answer. And of course, what we have on the wall is black frames. And they went, yeah, we'll have that then. You know, because you just need to put it into context of what's normal for them. I don't think anybody, well, very few people will have a teak TV or a white TV, because most TVs are black plastic. So it's always a case of making that suggestion and sort of guiding them along a particular path of what they should have. I did something last week, which I've always done. And again, it comes back to psychology of, we stand there and we take pictures. The customers see us with a camera in our hands. And we look in the back of the camera every now and again. You shouldn't do it every shot, but now and again, you look in the back of the camera. And I've often, if I've got a sort of family that I'm getting on really, really well with, I'll look in the back of the camera and I'll go, wow, that is a cracker. And people sort of get all sort of excited and go, oh, yeah, yeah. But what I've started doing, and I've been telling the girls to do it in the studio, is taking a picture of the kid or of the three of them or something, and then looking in the back of the camera and going, oh, wow, grandma is going to love this picture. So I'm selling them pictures, and I've not even edited them or shown them, because if you tell people a picture's fantastic, and I'm doing that more in the viewing lounge as well now, a picture will come up and I go, oh, grandma's going to love that. And invariably, it's one of the pictures they buy, because you're leading them down the path. As a grandparent, it's funny, actually, people in the viewing lounge say to me, well, Ray, what do you think, is the better picture? And I say, well, I'll be perfectly honest, I view it from a grandparent's viewpoint, not a photographer's viewpoint, because there's no point in me talking about what's right and wrong in terms of lighting or composition or whatever. But as a grandparent, I'd pick that picture, because Mary looks so happy in that picture that Granny will cry when she sees it. And they buy it, because I've given them the advice from the right direction. And it's that direction as a grandparent or a parent, because everybody's not going to be as old as me. It gives them that insight into how they should be thinking.
So can we go back to the operational side, Ray, then? So if we go back to the family, 3 generations, let's keep it simple, because there'll probably be more of those than 4 and 5. Yeah. So let's say there's 3 generations and they turn up with the grandchildren, say 2 grandchildren, mum and dad, and 2 sets of grandparents. What do you actually take photography of? Do both sets of grandparents want to be in a group shot like they would at a wedding, or are they,
it's funny you should say that, because in a way, it doesn't quite happen like that. What you have is a pair of grandparents who would usually be the woman's mum and dad. I don't know why it works out this way, but at a wedding, it is often the bride's mother who's the most important person. It's always been this underlying saying that if you please the bride's mother at a wedding, then you've got it. Because I've always said you've got to please the groom's mother just as much, because she's feeling left out. So I used to always butter up the groom's parents and make them feel important. And in a way, in the studio, it's coming through the same way, that what we're getting is a mum and dad inviting her parents with the grandchildren. And then they're doing brothers and sisters and that sort of thing. Then what we suggest at the end of the whole session is we say, right, well, you've obviously got parents and you've obviously got parents, and this was specifically for your parents. So why don't you come in with your parents and do the same thing? I mean, if they enjoy the experience, they will definitely come in. And in your beautiful marketing analogy, the cherry on the cake is give them something so they will come back. And what we do is we give them a studio voucher that they would have to normally go online and pay 50 quid for or whatever. And if we give them a voucher and say, look, we know that once you've had this done, your parents are going to say, here, hold up a minute, what about us? And it's that build up of clientele, because very rarely will you get, again, it comes back to this thing of the mother-in-law doesn't like the groom and this sort of thing. So therefore, if you had both sets of grandparents coming into the studio, there'd be this little bit of friction.
Okay.
So if you have one set of grandparents and then you build the photography around that one set of grandparents. So we would do granny and granddad with their children. Then we'd do them with their children and their other halves and grandchildren. We'd do the grandparents with the grandchildren. We would do a whole host of selection of groups, exactly as you would at a wedding, but in fact you do it more so because you're going to do a variety of poses and that sort of thing. So you finish up giving them a good selection of pictures to look at. If they want to perhaps put an album together for longevity, then fine, we suggest that. But what we are finding is that the kids, and let's say it's 2 or 3 kids with their kids, they will pump in some money to buy granny something on the wall. So they, you were saying, has things changed after COVID? The one thing that's never changed is the mercenary attitude of certain individuals, because it happened again last week where this girl said, yeah, we should definitely get a wall portrait for Mum because when she snuffs it, we can have it. And I sat there and I looked at her and I went, are you in business or something? You know, and it was quite funny that that was in the back of their mind, that, you know, if Granny does love it and then pass away, they'll get it, you know, and that sort of thing. So that's never changed because you get those sort of people before.
So is it the middle parents then, not the grandparents, who pick up the bill generally, or do the grandparents ever pick up the bill?
Oh no. Again, a lot of grandparents will say, this is on us. A lot of grandparents, because grandparents have invariably got more money than their kids. In fact, I was playing golf with my friend the other day, and he's got some grandkids, and he said, oh yeah, it was Kai's birthday at the weekend, so I bought him a new set of golf clubs. I went, hold up, Malcolm, you've never bought yourself a new set of golf clubs. You always buy a second-hand set. He said, yeah, but I'm not very good. He said, my grandson's a great golfer. And he paid out like 400 quid for a set of junior golf clubs. So the grandparents have got more money. The grandparents have got more disposable money because they know they've got enough for a rainy day, and therefore who are they going to spend it on? And we so often get people going, no, put your credit card away, we'll pay for this. Or you get the children, 2 or 3 children who are part and parcel of the whole thing, who will then split the bill 2 or 3 ways. So there's 2 different ways they do it. We often say that the kids have probably got more money because the grandparents keep bunging money in their piggy bank and, you know, their private bank account. But yeah, it's quite not. I mean, I call them, the other thing I call them is saga portraits, because if you think about it, Saga is successful with their cruises and their holidays and everything else because they know that the over 50s have got more money than the 20, 30, 40-year-olds. And therefore, Saga make their money on that. So we call them Saga portraits, purely and simply because they've got the money and they want to spend it.
Absolutely. I think it's 60% of the wealth in the Western world are owned by people over 50. So they have the money.
And therefore market to them and make the suggestions that they're the ones that have it and therefore spend it.
So Ray, before we go to some questions, I know that the UK government suggested the last couple of days that there's a new rule coming in September that you can't have crowds of people over 6 or whatever. But I also read that it doesn't seem to relate to business. Have you had any clarity from anybody in authority as to what it means for our industry and photographers?
You make it sound as if I can phone up Boris and say, now listen here, pal.
Can you not?
What did you mean by that? No, it is exactly what you said. What they're trying to do is cut down on the outdoor gatherings. They don't want people of more than 6 gathering together from sort of different areas. I do not believe it affects us in the studio, although again, most of our studios are roughly 4, 6, 8 people, and they're all in their bubbles because they're all the same family. They can't make it 6 people because then that would stop people going to work, and they're trying to get more people back into work and back into the office. So it's social, and it's social of people not in the same bubble meeting up. So I don't think it will affect, well, certainly after he announced it last night, we've had no cancellations for this coming week. In fact, one of the staff said, oh, it's nice to know that COVID's not going to affect us until next Monday when the new rule comes in. In other words, you can break the rules up until Monday. After Monday, you've got to be good, which is stupid. And that's how stupid the whole thing is. But again, it comes back to what I said. Be sensible, be aware, make people realise that you're aware for their sake, their health and everything else. But we don't touch people in the studio. We don't actually get that close to them. And we've got a big enough studio that we can photograph people at a safe distance anyway. And the only people that come in wearing masks today were people that had their dog photographed. So it's all different for different.
I'm interested in the mask thing because you started with a mask, wearing a mask, Are you finding clients are coming in wearing masks or not? Are they expecting you to wear masks, or what are you seeing?
I expected, when all of this sort of broke and the masks was the big thing and everything else, I expected a huge amount of people to be coming in with masks. And when they said, now when you go shopping, you've got to wear masks and everything else. I went shopping the other day. I went into a shop and I wore my mask. I didn't need to be asked. And a bloke came in behind me who wasn't wearing a mask, and the shop owner asked him to leave. He went out with a right hump, and he will probably never come back. Now, that I think stupid, because all she had to say was, excuse me, sir, can you just stand over there in the corner and I'll be with you in a moment. But instead, go and wait outside. It was a terrible attitude. We all have masks. I carry my Minions mask with me, and that Minions mask was made by one of the MPA photographers, who's an absolute delight. And I'm very grateful to her, because before that I was wearing a black one, that made me look a bit sinister with the Santa's beard coming out from underneath. It looked peculiar. But what we're finding is probably 1 in 10 customers are coming in wearing masks. But every customer that comes in, I stand there and hold it and say, would you like me to wear the mask? I give them the choice. And if they say, no, not bothered, then I say, fine, that's up to you. I've had quite a few say, would you like us to wear masks? And I say, no, unless you want to kiss me, there's absolutely no point. And I always make a joke of most things. But when we go in the viewing lounge, they sit on one side of the room, I sit on the other, so we don't get within 10 feet of each other, let alone anything else. So we're very conscious, but we leave the choice to the customer. I don't think anybody should become so dogmatic about it that it upsets people. But my daughter went on holiday last week up to Warwick, and she said they went to Warwick Castle, and they said the mentality was totally different up there to what it is down here in the south, where up there they just carried on without masks, mixing in groups as if the disease doesn't happen up north. And that's why so many towns up north have had to be shut down again. And there is a north-south divide, and I don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't know why that's happening. But I still believe you leave it to the choice of the customer and ask them to do what they would like.
Okay, so I know we have some questions on the marketing side, Ray, but before we go there, I just want to go back to what's been bought and when it's been bought as well. So you mentioned the viewing room there and the way you're keeping distance. Do you encourage the grandparents to come to the viewing, or is that a choice, or how do you work that?
We give everybody the same choice, come back to the viewing with who wants to come back and view them. Now, the one thing that does change slightly is the grandparents invariably are further away. So sometimes the older the grandparents, they don't want to travel. So what we would call the middle parents will come back to the viewing. We try not, we suggest they don't bring the kids with them. But again, people don't listen. But the kids make it more difficult in the viewing lounge. But if the grandparents can't come back, then we can put the pictures online for the grandparents to look at. The people can make the choices, and therefore they're sometimes buying the pictures as presents for the grandparents. The one thing that has changed, and I suppose this is technology more than COVID, is I've had a few people sit there with their phone and they've said, do you mind if I FaceTime my husband who's at home looking after the kids and things like that? So they sit there with an iPhone filming the show, and then they go through them and shortlist them. And then she shows her husband the pictures. He's sitting at home with probably a cup of tea and the kids, sitting in front of Disney Channel. And that's how they're buying their pictures and making their choices. Now, that hasn't happened yet with grandparents, maybe because grandparents are not so au fait about FaceTime. But those sort of technology things are happening a little bit more. People are becoming a little bit more conscious of it. But I would say we're probably getting 50-50 of grandparents coming back for the viewing. I've got a viewing this Sunday, which was the 17 people. and I hope all 17 don't come back. I really do. And we did actually suggest that it's a good idea if just the women come back, and the men sort of go, oh, thank goodness for that, you know, and then the women go, yeah, you're right, they're a waste of time, sort of thing. So you can make a joke of it and sort of suggest that it's the right way to do it, because 17 in the viewing lounge would just be hell. I think I'd put a sack over my head rather than a mask.
Do you ever see when you've got that, say, let's say there's 4 siblings, yeah? So the 4 sisters or whatever combination that is, and the lads are out in the pub watching the match and they're coming to the viewing.
Yeah.
Is there ever rivalry between the 4 of them as to who's going to spend the most?
Yeah. It's funny, you can sometimes see the rivalry in the pictures themselves, and you can sometimes tell who is the sister-in-law rather than the actual sister, because they will try and wear slightly more dominant clothing and things like that. And I can so often see it. I mean, you know, so much of what we do is psychology, and you can look back at pictures, and you can look at families and people, and you can go, she's jealous of her. And, you know, you can tell who's got the better clothes, the better cars, how the kids are dressed. You'll get some kids coming in the most gorgeous designer clothes, and the other one's been dressed at Primark. And you sort of look at them and go, oh, God, this is not going to be easy, you know. So, yeah, there's definitely sibling rivalry, and you will definitely get people, you know, spending a little bit more. But then I try and balance it. You know, what I want to try and do is not... I often say to people, you know, you'll get some people sitting there and they start arguing, and this can be husband and wives, it can be siblings, it can be anything. And I say to them, whoa, hold on a minute. I'm not here as referee. If I want a row, I can go home for one of those. I don't need to stay at work. And I sort of make light of it. But what I often do is I suggest that if they all throw a few quid in the pot, they can all equally have what they want. So I try and balance it out. Just because one's worth a few more quid than the other, if I can balance it out so that they're all throwing a couple of £100 in the pot, they can all finish up with £800 worth of pictures or £600 worth of pictures, then it becomes more amenable, really. And then there's no distaste afterwards, there's no ill feeling and that sort of thing. But again, you know, I sometimes worry about these webinars that, you know, I can sort of ramble on and talk about it, and I can, you know, talk about experiences and things like that. But I've had so many years of dealing with people that for me, it comes easy. The amount of people when I'm teaching, they say, oh, you know, I find it so difficult selling. And I go, but you're not selling. You're not trying to flog them a car. You're just showing them your beautiful photography, telling them the prices and saying, what suits you? What would you like? And because my mentality is, if you can give them something that is a gift from you. I mean, I so often give people gifts as Ray Lowe. Oh, you know, I love these 2 pictures which you've not chosen. I'd like to give you these as a gift. They will never forget that, you know, because you've actually gone beyond their expectations, and that's so important. And when you've got this sibling rivalry, I will bring it down to a level where people are not making the others feel bad about it. And I do it mainly with a bit of a joke, a bit of a laugh. Well, look, you know, if you want to look at this, you all go around Granny's house to look at it on the wall when you want to see it and that sort of thing. But you've got to just understand that everybody's different. You cannot handle 2 people exactly the same way. It just doesn't work.
So for the wall art, Ray, do you use Pro Select?
No, we've been using, I mean, we've had a system now, and we've been using a system called Phase 1, because we started with our digital with digital backs on the back of our Hasselblads. We were with Phase 1 at the very beginning, and that software literally has just progressed through. And the Phase 1 software we use, you can't buy anymore, but it's a fantastic system. Pro Select to me has always been too complicated, too highfalutin. People think, a bit like Photoshop, people say, oh, I know how to use Photoshop. And I go, no, you know how to use 1% of Photoshop. you know. And when people say, oh yeah, I use a load of ProSelect, I go, no, you just use 5% of ProSelect. You don't need the rest of it. If there was such a simple system, you know, I was lucky in terms of I started a long time before digital, and I learned my marketing from a brilliant individual called Mike Friedman. Him and Paul Kay were a partnership, and they used to run a fantastic group called the London Portrait Group, which is still going now. But when it started 40 odd years ago, it was fabulous. And Mike Friedman always taught us, you give people a choice of two. If you give people a choice of more than two, it confuses them. It's human nature. In the old days, if you wanted them to pay by cash, you would say to them, would you like to pay by check or cash? And the thing you said last was what they would go with. Of course, now there isn't check. So, you know, if you still do it the same way, it's do you want credit card, cash, whatever. So when somebody phones up for an appointment and they say, right, I'd like to book in for the weekend, our first question is, would you like Saturday or Sunday? Oh, you do Sundays. Oh, that would actually be quite convenient for us. Oh, yeah, okay, Sunday. Second question, would you like morning or afternoon? Now, your diary might be completely empty, but you don't say to them, you can have any time you want, because that doesn't make you look busy. So you say to them, would you like morning or afternoon? Oh, actually, yeah, or we have a bit of a lie-in on a Sunday morning. Can we do it afternoon? I'll go, yeah, great, no problem. Would you like 1 o'clock or 3 o'clock? What you don't do is say you can have 1, 2, 3, or 4. So we say 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. Now, they will choose one of those two. Because you've given them a choice of two, they will go with one of those two. What they won't do is go, no, none of that suits me, and start messing you about, because it's the choice of two. Now, in selling, it's exactly the same way. Would you like an acrylic or a framed portrait? Oh, no, actually, I love the acrylics. So you've got the choice. Would you like this size or this size? So we're always trying to sell a 2024 acrylic. That's what we want to sell more than anything, because it looks fantastic, and it's a great product. Plus, obviously, we want to sell digitals, but in a way, that's a sort of an add-on to what we're trying to do. So with the choice of two, you can lead people again down the path of least resistance. You can lead people where you want them to go. And Mike Friedman always said, give them a choice of two. Now, on our screen, we give them a choice of two pictures. Do you like this one or this one? Oh, no, actually, I prefer. The other thing that's changed enormously is the amount of people that don't know their lefts and their rights. It is staggering how many people do not know their left and their rights. Thank goodness you don't have to do hand signals anymore, because people wouldn't have a clue. I had one in this morning, and the woman went, I want the one on the right. And the husband said, do you know your difference? And she went, yeah, the one that's over there, sort of thing. And they start pointing to the screen. Or people, instead of saying left and right, say 1 or 2, you know. And you think, how simple. I've often thought of putting L and R up on the wall at the front to help them. But if you give them a choice of 2, it's easier. And that's what we've always done. And the system we use, the phase 1 system, is fabulous, because it brings the images up in pairs, and it just shows them those 2 pictures. And then we whittle them down to their favourites, and from their favourites, we then find out what they're exactly after or what they fancy spending.
Right. So the reason why I asked about that was, so a lot of photographers use ProSelect or something similar, right? And with ProSelect and those programs now, you can have the family send you photographs of where they might put it, so you can put the image on the wall and show it at the different sizes. So I was just curious how you might deal with that, where you've got, say, 4 different families who are all part of the one family, but all have different homes. So have you any thoughts on how you would do that if you were going to do that?
Yeah, we don't often find, if you've got 4 families coming in, that all 4 of them are going to buy wall portraits. What we find is that the difference between one might want a wall portrait and one wants a desk portrait of the same thing. And that's where selling digitals comes in handy, because if you say to them, well, look, if you all bung £200 in the pot, we've got a lovely wall portrait for Granny and Granddad, which you can wrap up, give them as a gift, and then the rest of you can have a dozen images as digitals, and then you can do what the hell you want with your digitals. And then we offer them a printing service from the digital, so we can earn again. And whether they want to buy a 2016 or a 10 by 8, it's entirely up to their own pockets and what they want to do. But I cannot remember a situation where I've got 2, 3, 4 families who have all wanted a wall portrait and they all want something different. It's one of those things that just doesn't happen, or it certainly doesn't happen with us. We're finding it's that one wall portrait for granny and granddad, and then they'll go with digital so they can each do what they want with them. And we're making so much profit out of what we're doing that it's a no-brainer, really.
Very good. So there's a couple of questions in, Ray. So Martin wants to know, what's the most successful marketing that you use? Email, Google, ads, or Facebook? And who do you target? So I'd say the answer is probably all of the above. Not one, There's no silver bullet on its own, right?
There's never one answer to every problem. And again, what suits me might not suit Martin. What suits one individual doesn't suit another individual. It's very much a case of you have to decide what you want, who you want, and how you're going to approach them. I've always regarded marketing as being an octopus. If you don't think of marketing as an octopus, you will finish up going down one avenue, and that might be the wrong avenue. We market different things to different people. When we're marketing newborns, we're marketing a very specific group of people. If we're marketing generational portraiture, we're marketing to probably 2 different age groups. And we use Facebook and Instagram more than anything. Before lockdown, we were doing external exhibitions, which were very successful, but very expensive. We're now putting more money into Facebook because we can't do the external exhibitions because the shopping precincts won't let us in now because of COVID. But if you're an octopus, you need to put out as many tentacles as you can so that you're reaching different people in different areas in different ways. The single most important thing I think we've got is on our website, we sell vouchers. We sell, I think it's 7, 8, 9 different vouchers. So somebody can go on our website, they can buy a pet session, a newborn session, a family session, and I've forgotten the rest, but they can buy what suits them, and they can buy that voucher. They can buy the voucher and give it to somebody as a gift. They can buy that voucher for themselves. The vouchers have always got a sitting and a print involved. And that, funny enough, is when people like this girl this morning said, oh, I'll have me free one. And I went, madam, that's a dirty word in this room. It's not free. It's a gift. And they go, oh, yeah. And another one would say, oh, yeah, you know, I bought a voucher and therefore I want me free picture. And I go, no, you bought a voucher, which meant you get a photograph. It isn't free, madam. You have paid for it. And they go, oh, right. Okay, yeah. And you've got to get them out of this it's free mentality, because if they think of anything that's free, that will continue down the line. Everything in our place is a gift, or you buy it. You obviously buy it first and then you get a gift afterwards. But, you know, even to the point of sweets, we give children sweets. We never say, do you want a free sweet? We say, would you like a gift from the photographer? Would you like a gift from Santa? It's that sort of thing that you put into their mentality. And to me, that's very important.
You want to keep them out of entitlement mode, right?
Yeah, yeah. The same way that when we create a show, we show people a beautiful set of pictures, and it comes up first as a title slide that says Ray Lowe Studios, because branding to me is important. I want them to know where they are. The second slide comes up with their name on it. So all of a sudden it's become personalized to them. When they walk in the viewing lounge, the first picture they see on the wall is them or their children or their dog. They never come into a blank wall or a pro select technical picture or whatever. It's always them they come into. And I then, when we're creating the shows, always say that the first picture after the title slide has to be a yes. It has to be a picture that's perfect, perfect expressions. Customers do not understand good lighting, good posing, good composition. What they do understand is, do I look good? And if they look at that first picture and they look good and they go, oh yeah, it's a yes, and it puts them in the yes mentality rather than, oh, I don't like that, and it puts them in the no mentality. So you've always got to err on the side of positivity, and then that will carry on through the whole session or through the whole viewing.
So Ray, it's what interests me is how do you pick that main image? Because it's interesting, like we run Business Success Academy where we're teaching photographers how to pan for client goals using Facebook marketing funnels and that sort of thing. And it's quite interesting in the group, like somebody will say, which photo should I use in my advert, right? And our view is you got to test it to see what works, you know, so let's pick 4 or 5, put it into dynamic creative and see what works. But invariably, what the group votes for as photographers is not the one that works, that connects with the clients. So how do you then pick the photo without wearing a photographer's mindset, if we call it that? Do you adopt the same approach as you do in the sales room? You approach it, I'm the grandparent, not the photographer, and therefore this is the image I think?
That's a brilliant question, because this is such a fundamental, and it's such a fundamental mistake that photographers make. Because photographers talk about their art. I'm an artist. No, you're not. You're a photographer that takes pictures and you see things differently to other people. Yes, if you're into fine art photography and all that sort of thing, I get it. But you are dealing with customers. You're producing family portraiture or generational portraiture, whatever you're doing. One of the viewings today was a beautiful dog, such a gorgeous dog. And I'm looking at the pictures, and half of my brain, whether it's left side or right side, is looking at them going, that lighting's gorgeous. Look at that rim light coming off the back of the ears and things like that. The other half of my brain's going, oh, that actually looks quite cute, the way the dog's leaned its head, or, you know, it's got its tongue out or whatever. And I never interfere or influence people. I sit back and listen, and you'll hear them say things like, oh, I much prefer the one where he's wearing a bandana. And of course, I look at the dog with his scarf around its neck and I think, stupid bloody picture. But that's the one they buy. That's the one they like. But I have to listen to what they're saying during the viewing, so that if they say to me, oh, Mr. Lowe, which one do you think? I'll say, oh, the one with the bandana looks really, individual. And they go, yeah, we think that as well. That's the one they go with. So you reaffirm their taste, because they don't understand good and bad lighting. So you as a photographer should get it right, then forget about it. Then you go into sales mode. I happen to believe, personally, that photographers make lousy salespeople, because photographers can't separate themselves from their photographs. If somebody goes, I don't like that, the photographer hears, you don't like my photography. That isn't what they're saying. And that's why I say to parents, don't bring your children to the viewing, because if you sit there and little Johnny's sitting on the floor looking at the pictures and hears mummy going, I don't like that, I don't like that, I don't like that. Little Johnny's listening going, mummy doesn't love me, mummy doesn't love me. And that's not what she said, but that's what he's thinking. And photographers are exactly the same. They get guarded, they get defensive. I don't give a shit what customers say, because I know they're looking at photographs through their eyes, not through my eyes, but through their eyes. And I have to accept that everybody's taste is different and everybody's going to go a different way. And I will, the other thing to learn in the viewing lounge is who's the boss? Is it him or her? Because if he goes, I like that one, and they start arguing, but you know he's the boss. If all of a sudden they turn around and go, well, what do you think, Mr. Lowe? I will go with the boss because I know he's going to win anyway. Invariably, the boss is the woman. But, I will certainly err on the side of, who I think is going to win that little battle.
So how do you figure out who the boss is? Tell us that secret.
Just by listening. Just by listening to how, I often joke that the first thing you learn when you get married is how to put both hands up. Make sure they can see me. You put both hands up and you go, yes, dear. As soon as you go, yes, dear, and you learn that, you'll have a successful marriage. Because if you think arguing with a woman, you stand a hope in hell's chance, you don't. And more men in the viewing lounge are realizing that. You still get that very hard, dogmatic man that, you know, is imposing his nature, but most of the time. And the other strange thing is we're getting more and more women coming to the viewings on their own. 2 of them today were women on their own, who were selecting the images. And that leads on to women who then choose the pictures, spend the money, and then when it comes to paying, they go, oh, you better use this credit card because he doesn't look at that bank statement. So they're spending money, and then when they go home and he says, well, what did you buy? Oh, not much, you know, because he's not going to know what they've spent, sort of thing. So I find things have changed enormously over the 45 years that I've been in business. But I actually prefer it now because it's a lot easier, it's a lot freer. But it's still all about psychology. And if you sit there and you sit back and you keep quiet and you listen to who says what, if you listen to, you know, the pros and cons, the way that different people bend, or the way that, you know, women will say, well, no, dear, I do like the one you like, but actually I think this makes Johnny look better. And you'll find little things like the man wants to choose a picture of the child that makes the child look older, and the woman chooses a picture where it makes the child look younger, because mums want their kids to stay young, dads want the kids to grow up and leave home. So there's a big difference between male and female, or mum and dad, over which picture they will necessarily choose. And mum usually wins because they want the child to look a child and look younger and that sort of thing. But listening is the only way you learn. It's the only way you learn. You cannot impose yourself on them. You can't impose your beliefs on them. I very rarely ever talk about photography or lighting. Sometimes I'll say, well, actually, that picture's a beautiful triangle, the way all your heads come together and your sort of eyes are all meeting, and they look at it and they go, oh yeah, I see exactly what you mean. And if you can give them a reason of why you like a picture, they will go with it. If you just sit there and go, yeah, well, I like that one, that's not a good enough reason.
Well, I think that's great advice, Ray, because something I learned years ago from a sales mentor I had when I started selling first. And I asked him a question over a cup of coffee. I said, so tell me, what makes a great salesperson? You know, is it an introvert or an extrovert? He said, no, it's none of that. What it is you came into this world with 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion and you'll be grand.
It's lovely because the way we've got the viewing lounge set out, I sit at the back of the room. Now, so many photographers over the years I've listened to say, oh no, I like to sit at the front of the room and I like to sit there and look at them. Well, that must be such an uncomfortable feeling. I sit at the back of the room, I sit back, I say nothing, I listen, I watch the nodding of the heads or the pointing of the fingers, and I can tell what's going on without looking at their faces. But if you sit at the front, it's very confrontational. It looks very office-fied, it looks very business-fied. You know, people very rarely ever look at the laptop that I'm working from at the back. The projector's on the ceiling, all they see is a massive screen on the wall or an image on the wall, and that's all they concentrate on. That's all I want them to concentrate on. So listening to everything that's going on is vitally important. And sometimes you listen, you think, oh God, how can I keep this person quiet because they're becoming too dominant? You know, you'll sometimes get somebody coming. The worst one is the sister. The worst one, it happened last week, is when you've got this girl that sits there who wants to buy some pictures, who wants to spend some money, and her sister sits there telling her what she should and shouldn't do. And I want to say, for Christ's sake, shut up, because it's not your kid, it's not your money, and you're just jealous because you're living on your own. That's what I want to say, but I have to keep my gob shut and just think it. I've just got to make sure that I never let the little man in my head jump out of my mouth. But you see those things happening.
So do you discourage, like if the husband isn't coming to the viewing, he's going to watch the football game, and she says, I'm going to bring my sister, do you discourage that if you know it up front?
They very rarely tell us who's going to come to the viewing. People in advance will very rarely tell you who's coming because they make that decision usually at the last minute. If they feel comfortable, they'll come on their own. If they're confident people, they'll come on their own. If they turn up with their sister, you know, I treat the sister just as lovely as anybody else. we offer them teas and coffees and everything else, and you try and kill them with kindness. Funny enough, again, my first viewing this morning, one of the staff said to me, "You're going to have to charm this woman because she's hard. She's really hard." And I went in, I had a laugh and a joke with her. We joked about how lively her child was. I mean, he was walking the walls, swinging from the chandeliers. I mean, he was a right little pain in the neck. And I'm saying, "Oh, he's ever so lively, isn't he?" And she went, "Well, that's a polite way of putting it." So we have a joke with people, and you sort of get over that personality, that hardness or whatever. And that's what you learn as you get older. You know, too many people think that you can learn it out of a book. You cannot learn experience out of a book. You do it, you experience it, and you learn from it. And that is the only way forward.
So Ray, you have, massive knowledge from running a business for so long. 45 years is just unbelievable. Like, I think it's 1.5% of businesses are in business after 40 years. So that's a phenomenal achievement. But I want to just delve into, because you also have a really important perspective as chairman of MPA, because you're talking to photographers all over the UK, some members in Ireland, some international members. What are you seeing from them? Are you seeing that a lot of photographers are giving up the profession, or are you seeing a lot of photographers starting to come into the profession, or has COVID changed anything there?
Yes, it's obviously changed a lot. There's been a lot of people gone out of business, and in a way it's understandable, but I happen to believe in this survival of the fittest. We all watch nature programs, and we all watch the lioness ripping an impala apart, and we all go, "Oh, such a shame." Well, if the impala could run faster, he wouldn't have been caught. And therefore, nature proves that survival of the fittest is the most important thing. And I think if you had an iffy business, if you had a risky business before COVID, you weren't going to survive COVID. That's pretty obvious. If you had a good, strong business before COVID, you're going to come out of it because you're going to put into practice all the things you were putting into practice before. Don't think that COVID has really changed anything, because it's still the same mentality. Bums on seats selling to those people. But you've got to do it now far more, I'm going to use a stupid word, but far more lovingly. You've got to be far more loving with your customers now than perhaps you were before. This woman in this shop last week proved it. Do you mind going outside? You've got no face mask on. Whoa, that's not showing love. That is just being too paranoid. And she was standing behind bloody great sheets of perspex, for Christ's sake. You know, it wasn't going to affect her, and I'm wearing a mask anyway. But I think you've got to love your customer. You've got to want your customer to come in. The one thing that has changed is how I say goodbye to people. And I stand on the doorstep, I open the door for them, which I always do. I step outside and I say to them, "I'm sorry I can't shake your hands, but I do appreciate you coming down and keeping us in business, and please stay safe." Now, I know that's become a, have a nice day in America. We've all who have been to America sort of found it very difficult sort of getting our heads around everybody saying have a nice day. Well, the alternative is to have a shitty, awful day, and I don't want one of those. I want a nice day, and now we're all doing the same thing. We're all saying stay safe. Well, the alternative is you're going to get ill. Well, we don't want that for anybody. So I'm saying thank you to people. I'm saying thank you very much for coming in. If you didn't come in, we wouldn't have a business. I've been in 45 years. I want to be there for a bloody good party when I've been there 50 years. I might be on a Zimmer frame by then, but I want to have that 50 years party. Whether it happens or not is in the hands of God, not me, but it is still important that every single customer is made to feel important. The only reason I've lasted 45 years is because customers have come to us, and because we've treated those customers beautifully. We get a lot of customers saying, "I came to you when I was a kid, and One of them last week was funny. She said, oh yes, she said, I was talking to my nanny about where we were going off to, and my nanny said that she came to you when she was a child. I thought, I've not heard that one before, but you know, that is because you've been in business that length of time, is you get that longevity of customer and customers who know customers and that sort of thing. I went to play golf last week, and the bloke behind the desk went, hello Ray, and I went, hi, and he went, yeah, we came to your studio last year with the family. So they remember you, you don't necessarily remember them. And you need
There's
to realize
nothing.
you are going to meet your customers somewhere down the line.
And Ray, I absolutely agree with you. There's nothing more powerful than a thank you, because a lot of people get caught up in what's the best referral marketing system and what's the best loyalty program and how am I going to bring them back. Just say thank you and mean it. You know, it really is.
Yeah, it's that sincerity that's important. Somebody once said, if you can't be sincere, learn to fake it. But you need to be sincere. You need to say to people, thank you. Because if you hadn't come in, we wouldn't have customers, we wouldn't have money, we couldn't pay the staff, we would have to shut the business. So the whole business is because of the customers. And you have to realize that, and you have to let the customers know you appreciate them. That is the most important thing. And that, again, is something you don't get out of a book.
Absolutely. Ray,
I also always say that I want to treat my customers the way other people, or I want other people to treat me. You know, when I go somewhere, I want people to make me feel as if I'm important. We went to a restaurant a few weeks ago after lockdown, or after they were doing this, please come into the restaurant sort of thing. And the waitresses were just horrible. They gave you the feeling they were doing you a favour. And I said, I'm never going back to that place again, because they didn't thank me for coming. They just made me realise I was disturbing their day. And that really angered me. And I was able to go back to work, and I was able to say to the staff, this is what you don't do. You know, now teaching my staff what I know is what makes me know what I know. Because when I tell them to do things, it makes me realise that I'm doing the right things. You know, and if they don't do it, I pull them up on it. Why didn't you open the door for that customer? Oh, I forgot. Well, don't forget. You know, and it's that little thing, it's those little bits put together that is important, that you keep it going through the whole business. And I see so many businesses that don't understand the element of service. And that's where America do it better than anybody. You know, have a nice day is a cliche, but they do actually make you feel as if they want you as customers. And I think that is very, very important.
Ray, on that note, I think we're going to call it an evening, but I want to thank you so much for joining us.
What happened to all these questions?
All the questions we've answered. So I've been looking at them here, and we've actually, you know, it's nothing but people just saying thank you so much, and you've answered the questions on the marketing, and there's been very few questions, so which is always a good sign, Ray, because it means for all the people who joined us live, there was 35 or 6 joined us live. And there'll be a lot more will watch the replay, and there's probably people on Facebook watching us as well, because we're streaming in there. So that means you've explained it really, really well, Ray, because there's very few questions.
Well, as it's felt about 10 or 15 minutes, I hadn't realised it had been an hour. But this is the whole point of chatting. This is the whole point of what I do in the viewing lounge. I don't sell to people, I chat to people. I have a laugh with them, a joke with them. We talk about their kids. We talk about everything except money. And money is the one thing we don't talk about in the viewing lounge. And at the very end, I'll say, and we'll do the money when we go out front. Because the viewing lounge is like sitting in somebody's lounge. You're chatting to them, you're enjoying their company, and then you go outside and do the business. And that's really what this has been. It's just a nice friendly chat. There's just a big growth of water between us that we're not allowed to go across at the moment.
I know, yeah, but we'll fix that soon enough. Although I'm feeling the way the Brexit negotiations are going, I might need my passport sooner than I thought to get into your lovely country.
Yeah. We'll never win Eurovision again, that's for sure, because Europe are going to hate us even more now. What do you mean you agreed something and now you don't want to do it? Well, that's being English, isn't it? You know?
Yeah. I won't say anything. I think he's looking across the pond maybe and trying to learn from someone over there. But we won't get into politics because then we'll fall out very, very quickly.
No, they're the things we don't talk about in the viewing lounge. Never talk about politics, never talk about religion, and never talk about football, because you'll support a football team that the other people don't. And, you know, it's they're the three things that are banned in our place.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ray. I look forward to seeing you again soon. I know the MPA Awards are coming up. That's November, is it? It's going to be virtual.
We're doing the Zoom Awards,
Awards.
October, in fact.
October.
But yeah, we'll be putting all of those announcements out. So it should be a good laugh seeing all these drunk people, knowing that I don't have to meet them for breakfast in the morning.
And you don't have to buy them a drink. Or they don't have to buy you a drink. I'm not sure which it is, but I'm sure we can sort that in advance, yeah? So is the plan that we're all going to join online and have a drink and do the awards?
We're going to have a Zoom meeting where everybody can just chat and network, and then we'll have the awards part, and then the next day we've got an AGM. So yeah, it's all planned, all worked out. Next week is the actual judging of the photographic awards, and then everything will be put into an AV show as well. So the only thing people will miss out on is cuddles and kisses.
Hopefully next year we'll be able to do that. But I'm looking forward to the business of photography awards as well. Year 2.
There's more entries this year, so we're pleased with that, because it just proves that is also taking off, and people are realizing that business is just as important as the photographs.
Brilliant. Listen, Ray, on that note, thank you so much. Stay safe and healthy, my friend. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
It's
Good
my
night,
pleasure,
everyone.
Please send my love to all the staff and the family.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ray. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. See you all soon. Bye for now.